I'm Eddie Cannell.
And I'm Tom Cannell.
Welcome, everyone. This is the Mortgage Brothers podcast. And this week, we are talking about a common question, very, very common. What is the difference between a broker and a banker? A mortgage broker and a mortgage banker. I mean, Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, it's just classic. What are you? Are you a banker or you're a broker? We don't even know if people know what they mean when they say broker. A banker, do you really know what a banker is? Like, when you say banker, what does that mean to you, Ed? Broker, what does that mean to you, Ed? So I think probably for starters, yeah, we're here to answer the question, the difference between a broker and a banker when it comes to mortgages.
Yes. If you're shopping for a home, you're looking for a mortgage to purchase the house, or you're refinancing your current mortgage, you may come across this question: mortgage broker or mortgage banker? Who do you go with?
Right. And depending upon who writes the article, they'll tell you just how great they are.
Yeah.
But, as I was saying before, I think we lead this podcast by saying we're not just, self-serving ourselves because we are brokers, but it just became so clear to me, this is even just a little while ago, that, brokers, it's much easier for a broker to become a banker than it is for a banker to become a broker. So the fact that we're sitting here talking to you as brokers doesn't mean that we're just self-serving. It's telling you just how good being a broker is. Otherwise, we'd be calling you from, the Mortgage Brothers Banker podcast.
That's right.
But we're not.
Yeah. And we're also going to just lay out some of the things that in some cases it is better for someone to go to a bank. And we'll go through that as well.
Very, very few and far between, but yes, we can do that. Okay,
Yep.
So why don't you define for the audience what is a banker first, and then what is a broker? And we'll just keep it very, very simple.
Very simple. A banker is someone who is an employee of the bank that sells the bank's products. Okay,
Using the bank's money.
Yeah, the bank's money. So so when the loan is given to the borrower, that money is coming from the bank.
Yep,
it's coming from the bank that banker works for. And that's where you get the loan from.
Right.
He's an employee. The underwriter who's approving your loan, they're an employee of that bank.
Mm-hmm. They have the big, tall building. They got lots of employees, lots of floors. That's the banker.
Yep, they have locations everywhere in the country. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't have that many locations, but they have bankers. Will be working for these large institutions that have large, we all, some of those banks are the institutions we have our checking and savings with. Sometimes those banks are small banks we haven't heard of before. We just see them every now and then on the corner of the street.
Okay. And then a broker
has a relationship with wholesale banks. So what we do is a mortgage broker sells the mortgage products of wholesale banks.
Of a whole bunch.
A whole bunch of banks. So basically, a broker works with a lot of banks. A banker works with their bank, just their one bank. Mm-hmm. Broker works with a lot of different banks.
And it's important to note it's the wholesale part of this.
Wholesale.
So brokers do not go through the front door of a shiny glass gold building. They go through the back warehouse door of a wholesale lender who's lending money like they are, lending or selling furniture or anything else in bulk. They're lending it at a discount, and brokers are out finding that discounted money for mortgages. So, okay. So we've defined the banker and the broker. It's very, very quite simple. Banker uses their own money. Broker finds it with other wholesale lenders at a discount.
That's right. Okay. These bankers, who are they good for?
Not many scenarios, you mean?
Not many scenarios. But there are some, like, for example, I will recommend a bank to someone who wants the least amount of paperwork. If they're not techie, if they can't do DocuSign or any type of e-signatures, they need to just walk into the bank and sign everything right there at the bank. They want it to be as simple as possible with the least amount of technology, phone involvement, computer involvement. I would say that that's one reason to go to the bank.
Mm. I mean, yeah, I've heard arguments too where I am just so fed up with dealing with, my bank's, red tape and this and that. And I say, listen, we're going to take care of you.
Yeah. I mean, it's 2020. And I even if you're listening to this in 2025, there will probably be some changes. But for now, we've come a long way. And most people are very comfortable with technology. But if you're
Right.
not comfortable with technology, that's what I'm talking about. Folks that are up in the the Flagstaff, Payson, Show Low, the north there, they live in very rural areas. They're getting a second home, or their primary residence is up there. And again, their situations can be very unique. They're not, again, they don't have internet connection. And I just say, listen, head to town. If you're living in very rural areas, that's
Mhm.
another part. It may not be because you're not comfortable with it. You just may not have the availability that's really easy.
Right. Okay. And then how about the borrower that has a very complicated, self-employment situation or business situation, and they've got multiple accounts, multiple lines of credit through a particular bank,
Oh, that's a
sometimes
good one.
going through that. So
Yeah, that's a
I,
really good
I
one. Mhm.
I think very, very complex small business owners that have relationships with certain banks already lined up, teed up, can be helpful. Those that are geographically situated to where it makes sense for them to go into that area and find a banker that
A
is
100%. There's a local restaurant owner, very successful, who actually has the restaurant pretty close to our office, and his finances are complicated. He owns lots of things. It's a very complicated portfolio. And I said, call your banker. Call the
Mhm.
guy who handles your business checking and savings. He will help you better than
Right.
me.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
if you're not in a remote area where having a brick and mortar location outside the metropolitan area is your issue, and you're not a small business owner, what was the third reason? It was geographic location
It's less paperwork in
and
general.
then paperwork. Right.
Right. Because
Which I'd probably argue with you a little bit on that.
Well,
But
I would say like this, because a broker will have a package for the borrower to sign themselves. The borrower is going to sign the broker's package, some broker disclosures, and the wholesale bank's disclosures. Just two different
yep.
entities. They're going to be signing both of them,
Yep.
acknowledging that we are the mortgage broker. They're going to
Right.
sign these documents. So there's a little bit more moving parts.
Okay. All right. That I'll go give to you, but it's not. It's hardly noticeable to anyone going through the refi process. But yeah, I think that's a good point. Okay. Besides those, 95% of our borrowers that are looking for banker versus broker, I mean, I would say hands down again, we'd be a banker if it were better to be a banker. So let's focus on the reasons of why going with a broker makes so much sense. We get our money from the wholesale lenders.
We get money
We
from the wholesale banks. Yep. And the banks the wholesale banks are competing for the broker's business. Okay,
Mhm.
so if you're a banker, you're just selling the bank's products. When you're a broker, we have a dozen great wholesale banks that are saying, Eddie, send me your loan, send me your loan, send me
Yeah.
this. We're going to give you this special. We're going to give you this special. We want your customers, the level of service that comes from that relationship. I can choose any of my loans to go to one of these wholesale banks, and they are fighting for the business.
And just like business ebbs and flows for us in the business world, it also ebbs and flows for wholesale banks or for certain banks. So to be able to go to certain banks at certain times makes so much sense. Whether it's pricing or product, it makes so much sense. 6 months later, we may end up switching our lot of wholesale banks that we go to. So yeah, so
Mhm.
I would say the wholesale nature of this, but also the ability through industry cycles to be able to go to certain banks that are offering and promoting certain products or certain pricing. How about the attention that we get? I mean, do you think a wholesale a lender would want our attention and would want to give us great service in order to keep our whole pipeline of clients happy?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean that's huge, and
They,
and and
yeah,
we're typically dedicated with an account executive, and that account executive runs point for us from
yeah,
every single wholesale lender we have, and all their job is to make us happy.
yeah,
And guess what? All our job is to make you, the listeners, happy. So
yeah.
you have a whole team keeping you happy, and if someone is not stacking up, they're not. We're not doing business with them again.
So this is what Tom's talking about. Real life. This is today. Someone emailed me, past customer, and say, Eddie, we were on furlough. I was furloughed for 6 months. I'm back to work. Okay, so they've been out of work for 6 months. There are banks that just won't touch that loan. They'll have certain requirements. So they can go to their bank and the banker can say, I'm sorry, we can't help you. Then
Totally.
that's the
Yeah.
answer. It's
That's
done.
it.
That deal is done at that bank.
That's
That
it.
that, that borrower brings me that question. I could go to I can send that question to 12 different banks, wholesale banks of mine, and yeah, maybe 5 of them or maybe 8 of them will say no, but I can find a couple that will probably say yes.
Absolutely. Another one.
And that's exactly what we do in income documentation, self-employment borrowers. You're
Mhm.
starting a new job. Bankers will have to just give that one answer that their underwriter gives them.
How about one of the biggest reasons why we are receiving so many opportunities? Jumbo financing. There are just, certain retail banks that are just not doing jumbo financing, because of some of the overhang of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something very, very simple, jumbo financing. That was a very commonplace, item. We can still do it. There are a lot of banks out there that are not, doing it. Some, retailers are not doing HELOCs anymore. We don't do HELOCs by themselves, but we'll do them as a piggyback.
Yeah,
So
we basically we'll broker that deal.
we will broker that deal, and that's
Yeah.
important for people to know that there are just you listed off a couple, and I listed off a couple of why that broker is such an important piece, because we have access to that. Let's talk about pricing for just a little bit more. I mean, one of the biggest reasons is our ability to shop.
Pricing, and I think that is a broker myth. There are myths about brokers. For example, oh, you guys are middlemen. And if you, as a middleman, you get paid a premium, and then you you get the pricing from that the bank gives you, and then you add on your fee, and then you pass it on to the customer, so the customer is paying more if they go through a broker.
Right.
So number one, that is completely false, because we get a wholesale price, because we basically get a very low price for that rate.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a better deal.
Yeah.
We have lower fixed costs of mortgage broker. We're basically run a very skinny operation, skinny costs, right? We don't have the big bricks and mortar costs, the big marketing budget. We just, we
Yeah. We don't
do
do
things.
commercials. We're not, we don't
Yeah.
spend all this,
Yeah.
money on frontline real estate.
Yeah. So there really is savings with the broker. It's total myth that the bankers have better pricing.
Mm-hmm.
And was that answering your question?
Yeah, yeah, and I just want to just continue to drive it home that again, our fee is already made up well in excess of any discount that we're getting you. So there is no middleman fee that you're actually paying.
Yeah.
If you look at our loan estimate, it'll actually show an origination fee, also known as an underwriting fee, also known as an admin fee. It's very comparable to a banker. Um,
Yes.
and it is right there. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very, very important that really there are very, very few cons, if any. We listed a couple of the ones
Yeah.
early on, but the ability to shop and the ability to provide that pricing and that service are just huge.
Yeah. And something to be aware of too, a mortgage broker actually discloses to you the fee or the compensation they receive. The mortgage banker doesn't. Now that has to do with Congress and a bunch of lobbyists, right? The bankers have better lobbyists than the mortgage brokers.
And the mortgage brokers. Okay, and
And
and just so that our audience knows what you're talking about, we just talked about the origination fee, the underwriting fee. That there's actually a compensation fee on the back end of a loan, and that is what bankers are not obligated to disclose, and yet
right,
we are.
right. So they are making a ton of money, for
Mor-
example, on a loan. Well, I shouldn't say a ton of money, like whatever it is, whatever the money, whatever the fee is, you'll never know. I'll never know because they're mortgage bankers. And Congress said in a law that passed, the Frank Dodd bill in 2010, that they do not have to disclose that.
Mm. How about a myth about how brokers are slower? Are brokers really slower?
Right. It totally depends if the wholesale bank is slow or fast.
That's
All right.
right.
So,
And yeah, that's right. And think about it. We have options. Part of what we
mm-hmm,
ask is not only what products do you have, what pricing do you have, but what timing do you have?
mm-hmm,
We have one bank right now that's getting loans done in 21 days. We have another bank that's getting loans done in 60 days.
yeah. In time, speed is relative to how busy you are. If you have a lot of loans in your pipeline, you're going to be slower. All right.
Mm,
Because you're going to have just more loans you're going to be working on. If a bank is not priced well, they have less volume. And yeah, maybe some guy out there is only, he's a banker, their pricing's really bad, and they can do loans in, 18 days because the guy is only doing 5 loans, or something
mhm.
like that a month. Um, Again, the idea is not to disparage or put down bankers, but I think that these are myths, a lot of myths that have come in,
Yeah.
and we're just trying to dispel them.
Right. Okay. Now, so we talked about timing. And again, you kind of talked about if you've got good timing, it might be because they're not busy, and it might be because their pricing is expensive. So you're going to have to kind of keep an eye on that. I would argue from the broker standpoint is that all of our pricing is going to be awesome, and that we're going to simply be looking at as part of the equation which lender can deliver, which product in a timely fashion, and they're all having to be super competitive. So, and again, we don't work with those lenders that are just too slow. How about in terms of the underwriting? Well, you don't have an underwriter in house.
Well, I think it goes to kind of what we were saying before. Um, that banker, when they get a scenario, for example, like my borrower that was furloughed, that banker goes to their underwriter who is paid by the bank, right? He's a staff underwriter and he works down the hall or,
Hmm.
and he goes, that loan officer at the bank, the banker has to go to that underwriter and ask him, okay, can we do this loan or not? That underwriter's in a bad mood today.
How about he just doesn't like that LO?
Yeah, he doesn't like that. Oh, Joey, you asked me a bunch of dang questions. I'm sick and tired of your loans. They're all crap.
Yeah,
No, like you have personality issues and
totally,
relationship problems at banks. And
totally.
there are a lot of bankers who have said, that's why they leave a bank or, leave from one bank to the other. If they burn a bridge with a couple underwriters, they're gone. They
And
don't
we all know what our bridges are like, former workplaces. I mean, there's personalities. That's a huge thing. When you come to a broker, we're actually, so I mentioned that account executive, we also have underwriters, and we have underwriters that are specifically designated to our group because they actually know kind of how we ask questions, what kind of questions. They know the quality of loans that we do. So we
Mhm.
have a dedicated team of underwriters that we can go to. I don't want to say in a moment's notice, but like in a minute's notice, we can shoot out scenarios and get responses back very, very quickly. Also, if for some reason they didn't like us that much, which I can't help but think that they do, um, they would have to like us because that's how they put food on the table,
Yeah.
is because we're actually doing business with them. Otherwise, we will simply go to a different wholesale lender. Meanwhile, if you go to the banker situation with the underwriter who doesn't like the LO, that underwriter doesn't care. He gets a salary.
Yeah, they take it for granted. The banking underwriter can take it easily for granted, like where their meal is coming from. It's coming from the sales people, and I think that in the mortgage broker world, our wholesale banks know we have a choice every single time we send a loan to them. We're choosing
Mm-hmm.
to send that loan to them, but it may be the last loan we send them.
Yeah.
If the underwriter is rude, or we get answers that are constantly too safe, sometimes people or underwriters will just say no to
Yeah.
everything. No, no,
Yeah.
no, because no is easy.
Yeah.
When mortgage brokers, we search for the reasonable answer as long as it's allowed in the guidelines, and we really do work very well. And those wholesale banks, and they're hungry for the business, and
Yeah.
they don't take
And
it for granted.
and they run a relatively lean shop. They can staff up pretty quickly, but a lot of these banks that have, again, like that retail presence, they're just a heavier, bulkier, more expensive proposition. Typically, not always, but typically.
Yeah,
So I just can't speak enough about a broker. And again, I'll go back to the original comment I made. It is much easier for a broker to become a banker than it is for a banker to become a broker. So the fact that we are brokers, I think, hopefully you like
I
the
really
Mortgage
like.
Brothers team.
Yeah.
It would that this is testament. Otherwise, we would be, podcasting from a different platform, owning a bank or running a bank, and that's not what gives our clients the best service, the best
Yeah.
pricing, best timing.
We love being a broker. And That's for sure. And I think we've basically covered everything. I'm hoping that it's comprehensive enough for everybody. And hopefully we didn't bore you with all these details, but yes, this is what it is. Broker versus banker. This is the content.
Yeah. And I'd also say too, lastly, when you're buying a home, the majority of you will go through a broker of sorts. They will go through a real estate agent, AKA broker. That's what we're doing on the purchase side too. We're simply matching borrowers with actual lenders, with wholesale lenders, very much like a realtor, where you go to and you say, hey, can you match me up with the right seller? So, instead of just, going to the local community center and pulling up sellers and going to them directly, hey, what can you offer me? What can you offer me? You're going to that real estate agent. And that real estate agent, his job is to be able to show you a relevant product in relevant places, at relevant times. And that's kind of what we do.
Okay, so everyone, we do this every week. Be sure to ask us questions, engage with any comments and questions you have for us. We'll be happy to answer. Be sure to like this or subscribe. And whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, be sure to like it, subscribe, and let us know if you need anything.
Awesome. All right, folks, thanks for your time as always.
All right, take care, everyone. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Mortgage Brothers Show. Please let us know if you have any questions you'd like us to answer on this podcast. You can email your questions to tom@azmortgagebrothers.com or yours truly at eddie@azmortgagebrothers.com. And be sure to ask us for a free quote on your next mortgage. Tom and I will personally work with you and help you through the whole process. Signature Home Loans, LLC does not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. This material has been prepared for informational purposes only. You should consult your own tax, legal, and accounting advisors before engaging in any transaction. Signature Home Loans, NMLS 1007154, NMLS number 210917, and 1618695, Equal Housing Lender.